Five Nights at Freddy's. I was gonna give a recap for this game, but like, this is just gonna be me rambling about the movie, and I'm not gonna hold back in terms of spoiling it, so if you know the game, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. I've been a big fan of Fnaf since I was 11, and it was around that time that I learned that there was supposed to be a movie. So I waited and waited, and I eventually forgot about it, I'm not gonna lie. But then production started, and then I watched it on opening night with my friends, and now I need a place to ramble about it, so I'm doing it here. You're welcome. Again, spoiler warning for the movie. So, before we start, I guess I'll talk about the drawing a little. There's not much to say. I'm drawing the one character who technically wasn't in it, even though there's been like speculation that after Mike checked on Chica, there was like a flash of what could have been the Marionette. And also, their theme played during the credits, so like, eh. So this bit is unscripted. I just wanted to ramble about it for a little bit, and also just get a speed paint out because I haven't posted a speed paint since my gem fusion video, which I kind of want to do another one of, but also I'm lazy. So I really enjoyed the movie. Like, it's gonna sound like I'm gonna be like very nitpicky and critical about it later, but I did enjoy it. Like, I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm really glad I saw this on opening night. Like, it was good. It was fun. The living tombstone was in it, which was a really welcome surprise. Don't know what else was a welcome surprise. Matt Pat, he was in the movie. That was the only time my theater like verbally reacted to something. Like, other than that, theater was dead silent. We were just watching the movie. And then that was the only time it was like a unanimous, oh my god! I always have a need to critique story stuff. For the most part, it was good. I feel like it took too long for Michael to realize the animatronics are alive. After the first security guard, we do see Foxy attack Michael, but we don't see him properly interact with them until Abby arrives, which I guess makes sense because they wanted to see her and they wanted to have her join them, quote unquote. But he wasn't really surviving Five Nights at Freddy's, which is the name of the movie and franchise. I feel like there needed to be a sequence of him actually surviving against them. I felt like they could have gone into the actual Five Nights at Freddy's aspect a little quicker than what was shown on screen. Another issue I had, which I think a lot of people had, was the climax. My issue isn't the same as the others. A lot of people had issues with the spring lock scene. I honestly didn't mind it because like it's a PG-13 movie. I wasn't expecting like an absurd amount of gore. I feel like if they hadn't gone so over the top with the first massacre with 4 trespassers, I feel like if they had held back with those scenes, they could have had more gore in the Springlock scene. But the gore wasn't my qualm with it. My qualm was it didn't feel like a climax to a story. A climax of the story includes a character choice made by the protagonist, aka Mike Schmidt, and that didn't happen. He turned on the light. He turned on the light. That was the emotional climax, not the climax of the story. And because of that, the story felt like it was anticlimactic. Other than that, I did enjoy the movie. That might be coming from somebody who's been in love with this franchise since he was 11, but now that I've gotten my nitpicks out of the way, or at least my story nitpicks, I can talk about the other stuff. And I just realized I should probably transition from the climax over to the spring locks. I'm a little disappointed with the spring locks, and not the spring lock scene. I already said that I actually really like the spring lock scene. I'm actually kind of glad that he wasn't screaming his lungs out. I'm glad that William was like keeping it in and he was trying to hold himself together while these mechanical bits were just jabbing into his torso and like making it so he's about to bleed out. I'm glad he was like toned down a little in terms of screaming. It showed that even though he was dying, he knows how to deal with the pain, and that's a little scary. But yes, my only problem with the spring locks would be the way they look. I feel like they could have made it more accurate because those were not spring locks. That was a mechanical rib cage. Like, we know how spring locks look. We've seen them in the comics, and we've seen them in Sister Location. Like, they will like jab into you and like spring into you. So that was my only thing about the spring locks. They were not spring locks. If we're gonna stick with the animatronic stuff for now, I feel like I should talk about Golden Freddy. I feel like they should have kept him as a suit. Like, the whole eeriness of Golden Freddy was that he was slumped over. Like, he couldn't move. That's what differentiated Golden Freddy from everybody else. He couldn't move. So I don't know why they gave him like an animatronic endoskeleton inside, but it wasn't my thing. Matt Pat was in it, and he lied about not being in the movie, and I think that was his appearance was the one time my theater verbally reacted. My theater wasn't very high energy, maybe because it was 10 in the evening, but it was like a unanimous gasp when he appeared on screen, and then when he said that's just a theory. Yeah, I liked it. He also worked at Sparky's Diner, which we'll also talk about Sparky. He was in the storage room, and he was right beside Shadow Freddy, but that's not what I want to focus on because I've never felt old. I'm 19, I shouldn't feel old. But my brother didn't know who Sparky was, and I had to explain to him the history of Sparky the dog. And like that hurt a bit, I'm gonna be honest. It hurt a little teensy weensy bit. That's all I wanted to say about Sparky. Moving on, Michael, Abby, and Garrett. I feel like I don't even need to say why I'm bringing these names up. I think all of us are a little confused about the Mike Schmidt stuff. Some people are theorizing that this version of Mike Schmidt is Henry's son. Instead of Charlie dying, it was Garrett dying, and that Garrett might be the puppet. But I heard someone say that they might have switched the kids around a bit for William and Henry. Vanessa being William's daughter made sense for the story. I admit it made a lot of sense. Didn't make sense for why she looks so similar to her game counterpart. It's not even her counterpart is the thing. They're not supposed to be the same person. But she looks exactly like Vanessa from Security Breach. There's probably a reason. But she also has the exact same role as Vanessa from Security Breach, so maybe that's just supposed to reinforce something. I don't know, maybe it's there to help support the theory that Vanessa is supposed to represent Elizabeth. Maybe Vanessa isn't even her real name. Maybe she's Elizabeth. We don't know. If I can go back to Springtrap for a second, I feel like he should have been more present throughout the second act because we saw him in the first act, we saw him in the third act. He was basically not there in the second. The only times we technically saw him was through pictures. We needed to see more of William, even if it was just like a body double because they couldn't afford Matthew Lillard. But they could have used a body double through him wearing the Spring Bonnie costume. But also maybe they just assumed that we didn't need it because most people watching the movie played the games or watched people play the games. And yeah, I know I sounded very nitpicky, a little ranty, but I really did enjoy the movie. There were some parts of it that were very clearly a little too goofy, like when they were building the pillow fort, but I really liked that they didn't shy away from showcasing that these were children. These were children who were hurting and being manipulated by William. And I don't think we've ever really seen that. Like, even the Silver Eyes, they're kind of just animatronics in the Silver Eyes, from what I can remember. I haven't read the book since I was 12, but I'm glad that we got to see that side of the animatronics. The sets were amazing. I like how they adapted the security office. I like that they had the poster in the security office. I was really engaged with the custody battle. The custody battle kind of fell flat because their solution was just killing the aunt. which was but I didn't want Mike to lose Abby. I like the little Bonnie plush that they put on top of that closet. There was a nod to It's Me on the mirror. I really wish they did something with that, but I liked it. Also, there was this one transition. I don't think I can use the footage, but there was this one transition where Foxy's spirit is watching Abby run away, and they slink back into Pirate's Cove, and when they emerge, it's Foxy the animatronic, and that was great. That was great. I loved it so much. And then they transitioned into an arcade hunt scene, which was kind of like the scene in Silver Eyes, the opening scene. There were a lot of scenes that people were pointing out that like linked back to Silver Eyes. A very prominent one was Springtrap being dragged off and put into the storage room by the animatronics, which didn't happen in the games. He died in the storage room, but in the books, he had the Springlock suit on while he was with the animatronics, and it seized up on him after they turned on him, and then they dragged him away, which is exactly what happened in the movie. One note on that scene: I'm a little disappointed Toreador March and Freddy's laugh wasn't in the movie. The perfect scene for it to be there would have been when the lights shut off, because they weren't crowding around him when the lights were off, but the lights could have shut off while he was cornered by the animatronics. It's pitch black, and then Freddy's eyes begin to light up, and the song begins to play. He begins to laugh as William dies. And I think that would have been a better scene if I'm being honest. Yeah, these are just my thoughts. These are just my thoughts. And yeah, that's how I felt about the Fnaf movie. I'm honestly still shocked that it even happened. It gives me a lot of hope for Ice Adolescence. Maybe it's a little too much hope, but it's giving me hope. Anyways, thank you so much for sitting with me and just listening to me ramble. It was fun. Now, before we go, I opened an Etsy. You can find prints, stickers, button pins, and more featuring art I created. Right now I'm selling a few designs at a discounted price before they're gone forever, so if you're interested, go check it out. If you want to find me anywhere else, my socials are linked down below. So, I believe that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.